There is a specific kind of procrastination that has nothing to do with laziness. The desk is clean. The idea is clear. The time is blocked. Everything in the room says this is the moment. And then, right at the edge of beginning, something strange happens. The body tightens just a little. The mind drifts sideways. Suddenly, checking messages feels urgent. Making coffee feels necessary. Reorganizing folders feels more appealing than touching the one thing that actually matters. Most people look at this and think, I just need more discipline, more motivation, a better morning routine, a stronger mindset. But what if this has nothing to do with discipline at all? What if the real reason focus keeps slipping away, especially around the things that matter most, is not laziness, not distraction, not the phone sitting on the desk, but something much older and much quieter? What if the past is leaking into the present, and nobody ever explained what that actually looks and feels like from the inside? This video is about that. About the quiet interruptions that steal focus and peace without ever announcing themselves. About the invisible weight that makes simple tasks feel exhausting. And about what it genuinely takes to reclaim the mental and emotional space needed to do the work that actually means something. Here is something worth understanding first, not in a clinical way, but in a personal one. The brain does not store memories the way a filing cabinet stores documents. Neatly, passively, waiting to be retrieved only when chosen. The brain stores memories bundled together with the emotional and physical state that was present during the original experience. The two are woven together, which means that certain feelings, certain kinds of pressure, certain environments or social situations can activate old memories without any conscious decision to revisit them. The person does not choose to remember. The body simply recognizes something familiar and responds accordingly. A particular quality of silence before starting important work might echo the silence of a classroom right before a presentation went badly. The anticipation of being evaluated might carry the charge of a moment when evaluation once led to humiliation. The feeling of being visible, of putting something real and personal into the world, might awaken the memory of a time when that exact kind of visibility ended in pain. None of this happens loudly. There is no clear announcement, no dramatic flashback, no obvious signal. There is just a feeling, unease, heaviness, a quiet but insistent pull towards something safer, something less exposed, something that carries less risk. And because the feeling is subtle, and because the connection to the past is invisible, it gets misread as something about the present. Not ready, too tired, not the right time. Better to wait until it feels easier. What it actually is the nervous system responding to a pattern it learned during a harder time. A pattern that made complete sense back then. A pattern that is now misfiring in a life that has genuinely moved forward, but whose body has not yet received the update. This is what quiet interruption looks like from the inside. And the cost of it is enormous, even though it rarely gets named for what it is. Every time a person sits down to work on something meaningful and that pull begins, the mind splits. One part is trying to engage with what is in front of it. Another part is being drawn backward towards something unfinished, something unnamed, something that never got the attention it needed to be released. This is not a metaphor. This is a genuine division of mental resources. Attention is a limited and precious currency. When it is quietly being spent managing the emotional residue of old experiences, there is simply less of it available for the work of the present moment. This is why someone can sit at a desk for 3 hours, produce almost nothing visible, and feel utterly exhausted at the end of it. Not because the task was particularly demanding, but because a significant portion of their available energy was spent keeping something at bay, holding something down, bracing against something they cannot even clearly name. Psychologists sometimes call this cognitive load, but it goes deeper than cognition. It is the body carrying a story it was never given permission to set down. Now here is where it gets genuinely interesting and genuinely uncomfortable. These patterns rarely look like what they are. They are masters of disguise. They look like chronic indecision. The person who weighs every option endlessly, who researches long past the point of useful information, who cannot seem to commit to a direction. On the outside, this looks like perfectionism. On the inside, it is often the echo of a moment when a confident decision led to something that felt catastrophic. The nervous system learned, confidence is dangerous. Better to keep all options open. Better not to land anywhere too firmly. They look like stopping just before the finish line. The person who gets 90% of the way through a project and then stalls. Who can start things beautifully but struggles to complete them. Not because they lost interest. Because completion means exposure. And exposure, somewhere in their history, once meant being seen and found wanting. They look like deflecting every compliment. The person who cannot receive recognition without immediately minimizing it. Who finishes something genuinely good and leads with its flaws before anyone else can. Not false modesty. The early installation of a story that said, "People like you do not get to be celebrated." They look like the sudden exhaustion that appears precisely when something important is about to begin. The heaviness that settles in right at the threshold of meaningful work. The body creating a reason to rest, because forward movement feels, somewhere very deep, like a threat. None of these are character flaws. Every single one of them is the nervous system doing its job, protecting the person from re-experiencing something that once felt dangerous. The protection is genuine. The problem is that it no longer matches the actual present danger, because the actual present danger is gone. The echo remains. The original sound has long since faded. There is one particular ghost that tends to be the quietest and the most damaging of all, and that is unresolved shame. Shame is worth distinguishing from guilt, because they work very differently. Guilt says what happened was wrong. Shame says the person who did it is wrong. Guilt is attached to a specific action. Shame is attached to identity. When a significant failure, a public embarrassment, a creative collapse, a relationship that fell apart in humiliating circumstances, is processed through shame rather than through honest reflection and grief, it does not become a lesson. It becomes a verdict. And a verdict does not stay neatly in the past. It travels forward. It sits in the room every time something new and risky is attempted. It whispers its conclusions at exactly the wrong moment. The person who carries unresolved shame from a past failure does not experience the new project neutrally. They experience it through the filter of the old verdict. And the nervous system, doing what it believes is necessary to prevent another humiliation, creates friction at every step. Hesitation, avoidance, the urge to stay small and stay safe. This is the hidden architecture of so much creative block, so much professional stagnation, so much of what gets labeled as just not being motivated. Motivation is not the problem. The past is the problem. The unexamined, unprocessed, unnamed past, still running quietly in the background of a life that is trying to move forward. So what does it actually look like to begin addressing this? And this is the part worth staying for, because the answer is not what most people expect. The first step is not a productivity technique. It is not a morning routine or a focus protocol. It is a shift in perspective that has to happen before anything practical will actually work. The shift is this: from seeing these patterns as personal failures to seeing them as information. As long as the avoidance, the resistance, the inability to stay present with meaningful work is interpreted as evidence of weakness or lack of character, the response will always be self-criticism. Push harder, be better, try more. And self-criticism, layered on top of an already activated nervous system, does not create clarity. It creates more noise, more shame, more of the exact thing that was already making the work feel impossible. But when the same pattern is approached with genuine curiosity, something different becomes possible. Instead of "what is wrong with me?" the question becomes, "what is this pointing to?" Instead of punishment, there is investigation. An investigation opens a door that criticism keeps permanently shut. One of the most practical places to begin is with what might be called a resistance audit. Not a productivity review, not a goals assessment, but a simple, honest practice of noticing. The next time the pull away from meaningful work appears, rather than immediately following it or fighting it, just pause and observe it. Where does it live in the body? Is it a tightness in the chest, a weight in the shoulders, a restlessness in the legs, a sudden heaviness behind the eyes? Notice the physical signature without trying to fix it. And then ask, gently, without pressure, what does this feeling remind me of? Not analytically, not as a therapy exercise, just as a genuine question, held lightly. Often, an answer arrives, not as a clear memory necessarily, but as a sense, a flavor of something older, a hint of a time when this kind of feeling was first learned. That hint is the beginning of the thread. Following the thread does not require going back and reliving difficult experiences in detail. It requires something simpler and more compassionate, naming what is present, giving it enough acknowledgement to stop it from running entirely underground. Because what lives unnamed in the nervous system has enormous power, and what is named, seen, acknowledged, even partially, begins to lose that automatic grip on the present. The second practical piece is the work of decoupling, separating current identity from the story that was written in a harder moment. A failure is a specific event. It happened under specific circumstances at a particular point in a person's development, with the resources and understanding they had available at that time. It is a data point, one data point. But when failure is processed through shame, the mind collapses all of that context. The failure stops being an event and becomes a definition, a statement about fixed character. And definitions, unlike events, follow a person everywhere. Decoupling means holding the event clearly, seeing it without distortion, and then explicitly separating it from what it is being asked to prove. That happened. It was real and it hurt and it mattered. And it is not a prophecy. It is not a measure of what is possible now. It is not the last word on what this person is capable of becoming. This is not positive thinking. It is not pretending the failure was fine or insignificant. It is refusing to let one chapter of the story permanently define the entire book. A small writing practice that can support this. Take a page and write, on one side, a clear and factual description of the difficult event. What happened? What went wrong? What was lost or hurt? On the other side, write a single sentence that updates the story. Not a motivational slogan, just a truth. Something like, that happened to a version of this person who had less experience, less support, and less understanding than exists now. It does not describe what is available from here. Reading that updated sentence regularly, especially in moments of resistance, begins to rewire the association. The past event gradually stops triggering the old verdict. It becomes, slowly, just something that happened. Painful, yes. Over, also, yes. The third piece is perhaps the most counterintuitive, and it is this: learning to stay present with the discomfort rather than always moving away from it. Most of the avoidance that steals focus and peace is driven by a very understandable impulse. The discomfort that rises when meaningful work begins feels bad, and moving away from it feels like relief. The brain learns this loop quickly. Uncomfortable feeling appears, avoidance provides relief, the loop is reinforced. But the relief is temporary, and every time the loop is followed, the discomfort is reinforced as a signal of danger, something to be escaped rather than something to be passed through. The practice of staying is simple but requires genuine courage. When the tightness in the chest appears at the threshold of important work, instead of immediately redirecting, simply stay with it for 60 seconds. Breathe into it without trying to fix it. Notice its texture, its temperature, its location. Let it be present without letting it be in charge. What usually happens in those 60 seconds is that the feeling begins to shift slightly. Not disappear, but soften at the edges. The nervous system begins to receive a new message. This feeling is not dangerous. I can be here with this and remain intact. Over time, with repetition, this changes the body's relationship with the threshold of meaningful work. The tightness still comes, but it no longer carries the same automatic authority. It is no longer a stop sign. It becomes something more like a familiar sensation at the beginning of something real. And when that shift happens, the creative and intellectual capacity that was being spent on avoidance becomes available for something else entirely. The work that emerges from this kind of cleared space feels genuinely different. Not free of challenge, not exempt from doubt or difficulty, but lighter at the root. Not driven by the need to prove something to an old voice. Not shaped by the invisible hand of unresolved shame, but connected, honestly and directly, to what actually matters to the person doing it. That is what focus feels like when it is not being quietly stolen. Not a perfect, unbroken flow of effortless productivity, but a genuine, sustainable engagement with the present task, with the capacity to return to it again after interruption without the weight of shame, making each return harder than the last. And that is what peace feels like when it is not being quietly stolen. Not the absence of difficulty, but the absence of that low hum of something unresolved pressing against every quiet moment. These are not small things. They are the quality of a life, the texture of daily experience, the difference between moving through years feeling perpetually behind, perpetually burdened, perpetually just about to get to the real work, and actually being here, in this work, in this chapter, in this life, with enough presence to feel what is actually good about it. The past does not need to be erased to stop stealing the present. It needs to be seen, named, gently separated from the story it has been silently telling about what is possible now. That work is quiet. It is patient. It does not produce dramatic transformations overnight, but it compounds. And the person who does it consistently, who keeps returning to honest observation rather than self-criticism, who keeps updating the story rather than being defined by its oldest chapter, begins to feel something they may not have felt in a long time. Like they are actually here. Like the present moment belongs to them again. Like the work they are doing is finally being done by all of them. Not just the part that got through the gauntlet of old echoes and made it to the desk. That is worth everything. And it begins with nothing more dramatic than noticing, just once, that the resistance is not the enemy. It is a message. And messages, unlike threats, can be listened to, understood, and gently released. If something in this landed in a place that felt true, subscribing keeps these slow and honest reflections close for the days when the past gets loud again. Liking the video helps it reach others who are doing everything right on the surface, but still feel the invisible weight underneath. Sharing it with someone who seems stuck, not for lack of ability but for reasons they cannot quite name, might give them the language they have been quietly searching for. And in the comments, naming one quiet echo that still shows up uninvited is the kind of honesty that reminds everyone watching that none of this has to be carried alone.